And so now I'll introduce someone who represents the reason I have all those accolades, and it's kids who do amazing work and are tremendous musicians. And so anytime I do a program, I try to have music with it. This time of year is tough because these kids are testing right now, and plus they're burnt out, and the seniors are checked out. So finding a kid who was ready to play at an event was a little bit challenging. But Ella Miller, who I'll introduce to you now, is one of our tremendous percussionists. She agreed to do this. She finished an AP exam about half an hour ago and then loaded up her vibraphone to come play for us today. Come on up, Ella. Ella is our, let's clap for her for sure. Ella's a junior. She'll be a senior next year. She's going to be our drumline captain next year. She's an amazing musician, not just at what you'll see her to do today on the vibraphone that we call mallets. She's a great mallet player, but she's also a good drummer, just traditional snare drummer. She's one of those that can do all the things. She's going to play a really beautiful arrangement of Amazing Grace for you. So what do you notice when you watch that happen? What's something that strikes you about it? What's something you noticed about that? Really creative arrangement, right? 4 mallets. She's using 4 mallets and no music. 4-minute piece from memory, you know? She's a special musician, and we have lots of them, lots of great kids doing amazing work at DB. So proud to be the director at DB. This is my 25th year as the band director. And John, how long was Fesway the band director? Do you know? 26. So I'm going to beat him, I hope. God, I hope. And I have a little bit of an exit strategy planned. I love my job, but as John mentioned, the band started in 1926-27 school year. The 2026-27 school year will be the 100th anniversary of the Dobyns Bennett Band and my 30th year teaching, which means I can retire in that year. And that seems like it might be a good idea, you know, to celebrate two anniversaries at one time. So if this whole idea might be Heather's, by the way. But we have a plan. I am not from Kingsport or even the South, and the way I came here is kind of interesting. My dad was a National Park Service executive. He had a great job that he loved. He was the first regional director in Alaska when Jimmy Carter signed the Alaska Lands Act and made all of that land that had just been like the Wild West. He made all of that federal land, national parks, national forests. My dad was the first regional director of that. And then when Carter was not reelected and the Reagan administration wanted to build oil rigs on a lot of that land, my dad said, you know, I'm not sure that's really the mission of the National Park Service. And so they said, okay, you're fired, but they don't fire you in that world, they move you. So my dad got moved to a position of lesser influence. He became the superintendent of the Great Smoky Mountains my junior year of high school. So I remember thinking, and remember I'm living in Alaska, and when my parents told me we were moving to Tennessee, I thought that's the middle of nowhere. And I was living in Alaska, you know? And so I graduated from high school my senior year from Gatlinburg-Pittman, and that year I was a pretty good musician in high school, and I got recruited by Dr. Julian to go to UT. So I did an undergraduate and a graduate degree at UT, and I remember being, when you were drum major of the band, you were also the MC of all the high school band events that UTK hosted. And I remember Dr. Julian saying, now there's one band you have to watch when they come to Knoxville to perform, and that's the Dobyns Bennett Band. You have to watch the Dobyns Bennett Band. And so I remember being an undergraduate student emceeing for the Dobyns Bennett Band, and frankly the Robinson Middle School Band in the Charlie Heron era. We were told to watch everything Charlie Heron did, from how organized the kids were to how he personally adjusted every kid's music stand before he'd let them play, to the fact he brought his own, even though UT had a perfectly nice podium and music stand, Charlie Heron loaded his own and brought it from Kingsport. And I knew about Kingsport Band before I knew anything about Kingsport, Tennessee. I knew about Dobyns Bennett and Robinson Middle School. And then my first job, so I graduated from UT and went and taught in Virginia for 6 years. And when the Dobyns Bennett job came open, I was like, well, I'll apply. Why not? I didn't think I would even have a shot at getting it. I was one of the finalists. The other 2 finalists was a legendary guy named Mac Bowman, who taught in Georgia for a long, long time, and a guy named Bruce Dinkins, who had built this incredible band in Irmo, South Carolina, both of them 25 years older than me. And they hired me because I was the cheapest option. And so 25 years ago, I got the DB job and have loved calling Kingsport home. Very, very much loving my job. People ask, Graham Clark was my mentor teacher my first year at DB. And he and I are still fast friends. And I remember him saying something to me that resonated and really played a big role in how we made the band become sort of a national competitor. And he said, you have to benchmark your organization against the best organization you can benchmark against. And he said, you're not trapped by these pesky TSSAA regulations that the sports teams have to follow. So if I'm the football coach, I have to play in the Big East District, and then I have to go into playoffs. And I remember, gosh, maybe as many as 15 years ago, we were having a hard time getting the band any better. I was pushing and pushing the kids, and they were responding okay. And then halftime of a home football game would come, and one of these smaller band programs in this region would be at the DB game, and they would go first. And our kids would look at that band, and then they'd look at our band, and they say, "Why are you yelling at us, Mr. Cook? We are clearly better than that." And we were finding it really hard to get to what we wanted to be the next place. So we started doing this Bands of America thing, and I think we've been doing it long enough that folks in Kingsport kind of know what it is, and it's a national circuit of competitive marching bands. And when we started doing it, we got our butts kicked for years, like for many years. And Calvin's son was in the band, and I remember one year Calvin's son played trumpet, and Calvin's son went through a group of band kids when we were trying to kind of make it in the national scene. For 4 years, they didn't win a single band contest. And I remember the last contest we went to, his son's senior year, we came in second, and the kids took the trophy apart on the bus and put it in the bus toilet. That's how mad they were at me. And it was just a process that we were trying to learn how to be better. And it takes time, right? And so now we are able to compete with, frankly, groups that we shouldn't be competing with at these Bands of America national competitions. I think this is the thing I'm proudest about, is the difference in our community's demographic when you compare it to the demographics of the communities whose high school bands we're competing with. And I ran the numbers. So this year bands in the National Marching Band thing are putting classification, you would think, by band size. That seems intuitive, right? That you would be in your classification by the size of your band. But it's not done that way. It's more done by the size of your school. And so we are a 3A school. It's 1A, 2A, 3A, 4A. And we're a 3A school. Dobyns Bennett, I heard this year, Dobyns Bennett's the third largest high school in Tennessee right now, and still just a 3A school nationally. The schools in Texas and Indiana are like often twice as big as Dobyns Bennett. DB's got about 2,200 students right now, and we're competing against schools much larger. But the thing that speaks to the support that folks like you give the band, and the families who support what we do, the city and the school districts who help with funding, it's the only reason it's happening. So we were, this year, while we won 3A, we were the highest scoring band in 3A, we were 8th place overall. The first place band from Broken Arrow, Oklahoma's got a median family income of $80,000. Second place was Carmel, Indiana, $120,000 median income. Third place, Avon, Indiana, $100,000 median income. I can go right down the list. In fourth place was the Woodlands, Texas, $168,000 a year median family income. Flower Mound, Texas is in the same community. Claudia Taylor Johnson is suburban San Antonio. They've got about $120K median family income. Kingsport's median family income is $43,000. And that's something we obviously wish were higher, but the fact that we are able to compete with these folks with some of our financial constraints is, I think, the thing I'm proudest of. We have kids in the Dobyns Bennett Band from every neighborhood in Kingsport. Every neighborhood in Kingsport. And the reason we're able to do that is because we have support from community members, and as I mentioned, the city and the district are great with funding. And that is so important. And we've got some politicians in the room who I think know that. And I'm not a district leader for the school system, but I will say that through my lens as a program director, it means a lot that the city supports the schools like they do and continues to do that. And so our kids just do the work and compete at the highest level. We've got a lot of kids that go on to play in college, which is another thing that's exciting for them because they can make money, scholarship money doing it. John mentioned in his era, 10% of the UT band was from Dobyns Bennett. That blows my mind. But we've got kids going all over the place. It's not true now, but it was right before Texas A&M got into the SEC. And we have had kids in the Texas A&M band. Ben Jack, the Jack family are at Eastman, you may know them. But there was a year, about 6 years ago, maybe 8 years ago, we had a kid marching in every band in the SEC at the same time. We even had a kid in the Alabama band. And that's a neat statistic, but we've had kids get scholarship money to play their instruments at Harvard and Yale and Ivy League schools. And so I think that's a message that sometimes doesn't get sent to people who are really used to the idea that athletes are going to get money. If you're a student athlete, especially at the Division I level, you're going to get money to go to college. And I think sometimes people forget that our arts kids also can pay for college through scholarship money. I want to leave time for questions, but I want to say a couple things about the other half of our band, the football halftime competitive thing. That makes the papers, people see that, and that's sort of the forward-facing part of our program, the PR wing, if you will. But honestly, Dobyns Bennett's tradition over time is excellence in concert band, and that's just kids sitting on a stage making music like a symphony would. And really the biggest part of our legacy is that. And that's where the teaching occurs. That's where we're teaching kids how to play their instruments so that they can march down the road for the 4th of July parade, and do a halftime show at a home football game in J. Fred. But the real teaching occurs in concert band. This year, we have an especially amazing group of kids because we just went through a year and a half of doing band in a pandemic over Zoom calls. And that was a real challenge. I mean, any academic scenario was a challenge to do digitally, but to do instrumental music digitally was near impossible. So for example, I've got our woodwind class is about 160 kids. So all the woodwind kids would log on to their computer, and we would, I know this sounds so ridiculous, and it felt ridiculous doing it, but I would conduct into my screen, and they would theoretically play on the other end of their screen. But they have to have their sound off because everyone's internet speed's different. It wasn't going to line up and sound like a piece of music. So we would make them leave their cameras on, but I am certain most of them were just pushing buttons and not really playing. And we found out that I was completely right when they showed up back at the school to do band the real way, because we were way behind. And what those kids were able to do was very different than it had been when we sent them on their way to do it on screen. I guess we've tried to, even the kids who we knew were really dedicated, serious musicians, who we knew were playing their horns at home, they still came back and didn't sound very good. And we tried to hypothesize why that was true. And we envisioned, a kid in their bedroom with pillows and stuffed animals, and the acoustics are bad, and your mom's yelling at you to quiet down in the next room, and we're not sure why, but we were really behind. And the kids, under the leadership of this year's graduating senior class, came back quick to such a degree that I think we had the best concert band at DB we have ever had this year. Had 14 kids make All-State, Tennessee All-State band. That's the most. We are lucky to traditionally have the most of any high school in the state to make the Tennessee All-State band, but 14's double what we normally have. And so it just shows you what kids are capable of doing if they have a vision for what you want them to do. There are consistent high expectations, and they just believe and trust in the teachers who are working with them. And we're really lucky to have that at every level. We've got 2 new middle school band directors that I hope you'll get to meet, and maybe you can have them come someday to speak to you here. But Alex White is our brand new band director at Sevier Middle School, and his dad was Jack White. His grandfather was Jack White, so some of you will know the family. And he's excited to be back in a place where his family's got some roots. And then we stole a really experienced middle school band director from West Tennessee. His name is Daniel Foster, who's at Robinson, and he literally moved his family all the way across the state simply to have the Robinson job, because that's a band program with a real history in the middle school band world, and he just uprooted to come to Kingsport to teach band. I've got about 10 minutes, so questions. What questions can I answer for you? Yes, sir.